There was a summer when I was 9 years old, the summer of 1962, and the heat came early that year, came in late May and never left. The fields were thick with dust by the first week of June. Every animal on our farm moved slower. The dogs stayed under the porch. The horses stood in the shade of the big maple near the barn and would not come out, not even for oats. And I remember my mother standing at the kitchen window one morning, watching my older brother Samuel drink from the pump behind the house. He had just come in from the field. He was 15, strong as a young horse, and he was pumping the water hard, cupping it in both hands, gulping it down so fast it ran off his chin and soaked the front of his shirt. My mother set down the dish she was drying. She walked outside, and she said something to him that I did not understand at the time, something I would not understand for years. She said, "Samuel, a horse drinks that way. You are not a horse." He stopped. He wiped his face, and she brought him a wooden cup, filled it halfway, and told him to sit in the shade for 10 minutes before he drank another drop. He argued, the way boys do. She did not argue back. She simply waited, and he sat. I thought she was being hard on him. I thought she was being unfair. A boy works in the field all morning in that kind of heat. You let him drink. That is what I believed at 9. I was wrong. My mother knew something that her mother had taught her, and her mother before that, something our community understood long before anyone put a name to it, something the outside world forgot, and is only now beginning to remember. The way you drink water matters more than how much you drink. Let me say that again, because I want it to land in you the way it eventually landed in me. The way you take water into your body, the speed, the temperature, the timing, the amount, that is not a small thing. In my community, we have treated it as one of the important disciplines of daily life for over 150 years. Not because someone wrote a book about it, not because a doctor told us to, because we watched what happened to people who ignored it. And what we saw was enough. Now, I am going to tell you what we learned. Some of it will surprise you. Some of it might unsettle you, because it goes against nearly everything the modern world tells you about drinking water. But I will ask you to stay with me. There is something my father told me later. Something about what water does to the body when it is taken wrong. Something he learned from watching his own father suffer. And I have carried that teaching for more than 50 years. I will share it with you before I am done. But first, the beginning. The rule that started everything. In my community, we do not drink water while we are eating. This is not new. This is not something that came along in my generation, or even my father's. My grandmother, who was born in 1889, told me she had never once seen her own grandmother take a sip of water during a meal. Not a sip. And her grandmother was born before the Civil War. So when I say 150 years, I mean it. This practice goes back as far as our living memory can reach, and probably further. The reason is plain. When you eat, your body is doing a kind of work. Your stomach has its own heat, its own strength. The food goes in, and the body breaks it down. Our people did not know the science. We did not have microscopes or laboratories. But we knew from observation that when you pour cold water into the stomach while it is working on food, the work slows. The body struggles. You feel heavy. You feel bloated. The food does not nourish you the way it should. It sits. It turns sour. My grandmother used to say the stomach is like a cook stove. When the fire is burning and the pot is working, you do not throw cold water into the pot. You let it do its work. You wait. And when the work is done, when the food has had its time, then you drink. Slowly. At the temperature of the room. Not from the icebox. Not from the cold well. I have watched people in the towns near our community sit down to a meal with a glass of ice water already on the table. Before the first bite of food, they drink. During the meal, they drink more. After the meal, more still. and then they wonder why their digestion is poor. They wonder why they feel sluggish, why their bellies ache, why the food does not seem to give them strength. I do not judge them, but I notice. In our homes, you will find water on the table, but it is served after the meal, usually a full 30 minutes after, and it is never ice cold, room temperature, or just slightly cool from the spring. That is how it has always been. The children learn it young. The way Samuel learned it that morning at the pump, from my mother, who learned it from hers. There is a second rule, and this one is the one I see broken most often when I visit the world outside our farms. We do not gulp water, ever. This seems like a small thing. It is not a small thing. When you gulp water, when you tilt your head back and pour it down your throat the way my brother was doing that morning, your body cannot use it properly. It passes through you. It fills your stomach with volume, but does not do the deeper work that water is meant to do. Your body needs time to receive water, the way dry soil needs time to receive rain. Have you ever watched a hard rain fall on ground that has been dry for weeks? The water does not go in. It runs off. It pools on the surface and races away to the ditches. But a slow, steady, gentle rain, the kind that falls all night and into the morning, that rain soaks deep. It reaches the roots. It brings the soil back to life. Your body is the same. My grandfather, my father's father, a man who worked every day of his life until he was 84 years old, he drank water in sips, small sips. He would take a mouthful, hold it for just a moment, and swallow. Then he would wait. He would breathe. He would take another sip. A single cup of water might take him 5 or 10 minutes to finish. I used to watch him when I was young and think he was being slow because he was old. I was wrong about that too. He was not being slow. He was being deliberate. He was giving his body what it needed in the way it could receive it. My mother once told me that the old women in her family believed that gulping cold water was one of the surest ways to weaken the heart. I cannot tell you whether that is true in the way a doctor would measure it, but I can tell you that my grandfather, drinking the way he did, outlived every man in his generation in our district. His heart was strong until the very end. Make of that what you will. There is something else, a third teaching, and this one goes deeper than the others. We do not drink water first thing in the morning, not the way I have heard people in the outside world describe it. I have been told that some people now wake up and immediately drink a large glass of water, sometimes 2, sometimes with lemon or salt, or other things added to it. They do this before they eat, before they pray, before they do anything at all. They believe it cleanses the body. They believe it wakes the organs. We see it differently. In the morning, the body is like a field that has rested overnight. It is still. It is quiet. The fires are low. You do not flood a still field. You do not throw open the gates and let the water rush in. You wake the body gently. In our community, the first thing we do in the morning is move. We rise. We wash our hands and face with cool water. We dress. We go to the barn. We begin the chores. The body wakes through work, through movement, through the cool morning air on the skin. And only after the body has been moving for a while, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, do we take our first drink. And that first drink is small. Half a cup, maybe less. Taken slowly. My father was very particular about this. He said that a man who pours water into a cold body is like a man who pours water into a cold lamp. It does nothing but make the wick too wet to light. You must let the fire come first. Then the water has something to work with. Do you see the pattern? In every case, the teaching is the same. Water is not something to force. It is something to receive. The body knows when it is ready. The body asks when it needs. And the discipline is in listening, not in measuring, not in counting ounces, not in carrying a bottle everywhere you go and sipping from it all day long like a child with a teat. That brings me to the fourth teaching, and this is the one that separates our practice most sharply from the world around us. We drink when we are thirsty, only when we are thirsty. I know that sounds too simple. I know the modern advice says otherwise. I have heard it myself. People telling me that by the time you feel thirsty, it is already too late. You are already dried out. With respect, I do not believe that. And neither did anyone in my community, going back as far as memory runs. The body was made with a signal. That signal is thirst. When you need water, you know it. You feel it in your mouth, in your throat, in a certain kind of tiredness that sits behind your eyes. That feeling is not a failure. It is not your body making a mistake. It is your body telling you exactly what it needs, at exactly the right moment. We trusted that signal. We still do. A man working in the field does not carry a jug and drink on schedule. He works. When his body tells him it is time, he stops. He goes to the shade, he sits, and he drinks, slowly, at room temperature, in small amounts. Then he returns to work. That is how my father worked. That is how his father worked. That is how I have worked for more than 60 years. And I will tell you something I have observed about people who drink water all day long, constantly, without waiting for thirst. They look waterlogged. I do not mean that unkindly, but there is a kind of puffiness, a softness, a heaviness that comes from a body that is always full of water but never truly using it. The body becomes like low ground in the spring, always wet, never firm. The old women in my community called it wasserschwer, water-heavy, and they watched for it the way they watched for any other sign that the body was out of balance. Now I want to tell you about the fifth rule, the one concerning temperature. And this is where I must share what my father learned from watching his own father suffer. The thing I promised you earlier. My grandfather, on my mother's side, was a different man from my father's father. He was a good man, a hard worker. But he had one habit that went against the old teaching. He loved cold water. In summer, he would draw water from the deepest part of the well, where it came up so cold it hurt your teeth, and he would drink it fast, in long swallows, especially after work. He said it refreshed him. He said he could feel it cooling him from the inside. My grandmother warned him. She warned him many times. He waved her off the way men sometimes do, when they think a woman is being overly careful. By the time he was 60, his stomach gave him trouble nearly every day. Cramping, pain after meals, a tightness in his belly that would not let go. By 65, he could not eat a full meal. He grew thin. The strength went out of his arms. And I remember my father sitting with me one evening, after we had visited my grandfather and seen how frail he had become. And my father said something I have never forgotten. He said, "Eli, cold water is a shock to the body. Every time you pour it in, the body has to stop what it is doing and deal with the cold. It is like opening the barn door in January while the animals are trying to stay warm. You may think it feels good, but the body pays for it, and the body keeps a record. One day, it hands you the bill." My grandfather passed at 68. That was young for our community, a community where men routinely work into their 80s. And while I cannot say with certainty that the cold water was the cause of all his trouble, I can say that the pattern was there, the old teaching was there, and the warning my grandmother gave him, the one he ignored, was the same warning her mother had given her, the same warning I am giving you now. Do not drink water ice cold, ever. Let it come to the temperature of the room. Let it be as close to the warmth of your own body as you can manage. Water at that temperature enters you gently. It does its work without forcing the body to fight. It moves through you the way a slow rain moves through good soil, deeply, quietly, all the way to the roots. There is one more thing I want to say, and this is not a rule so much as an observation, a warning, if you want to call it that. I have noticed that the outside world has turned water into a kind of obsession. People carry bottles everywhere. They track how many glasses they drink. They add things to it, powders, flavors, colors. They buy water in plastic from stores when there is a tap 3 feet from where they stand. They have made something simple into something complicated, and something free into something expensive. And in doing all of that, they have lost the relationship with water that my people have kept. Water is not a product. Water is not medicine. Water is not a task to check off a list. Water is a gift from the ground, from the rain, from the Creator who set the springs in the hills. And like every gift, it asks to be received with respect, with attention, with gratitude, with an understanding of what it is and what it is not. When you drink water thoughtlessly, gulping it ice cold from a plastic bottle, while you rush from one place to the next, barely tasting it, barely noticing it, you are not honoring what it is. And the body knows. The body always knows. In my community, there is a moment at the end of a long day of work, the kind of day where you have been in the field since first light, and the sun has worn you down to the bone, when you come in and wash your hands and sit at the table, and someone sets a cup in front of you, a simple clay cup, filled halfway with water that has been sitting in the cool of the kitchen all afternoon, not cold, not warm, just right. And you lift that cup, and you take a sip, and you hold it in your mouth for a moment before you swallow, and the taste of it, plain, clean, alive, fills you in a way that nothing else can. That moment is holy to me. I do not use that word lightly. You can have that moment too, not by buying better water, not by following a schedule, not by measuring ounces, but by slowing down, by waiting until your body asks, by taking it in gently, the way the earth takes in the rain, by treating the simplest thing in the world as though it matters, because it does. My mother knew it. Her mother knew it. And now, if you are willing to listen the way Samuel finally learned to listen that morning at the pump, you know it too. Sit in the shade for a while, let the body settle, and when the thirst comes, and it will come, drink slowly. The water will find its way. It always does, when you let it.